So at first, warm welcome. It's a long day, so I hope you're fresh enough to have another session. So for me, it's also a long day. I just arrived from Germany yesterday, so it's 2 a.m. in the morning for me. So when I get bored, it's not about you. It's just very late for me. So we as AppAgile, so we have a booth on the expo area as well. We had a lot of questions today, so who we are, because we have this magenta T on our booth. So we are part of the Deutsche Telekom, German company, telco provider, and T-Mobile US is one entity from Deutsche Telekom, the same as we are. And the difference is we are providing managed IT services for our customers, but it's a B2B business, so we don't sell consumer business like T-Mobile, mobile plans, mobile phones, et cetera. We are more on this IT services, so we serve cloud services to our customers, and the core of our service we are offering here, what I like to show here to you is our managed PaaS environment. Mark, kannst du mir helfen hier? But then I can go ahead. So can you bring the PowerPoint on the stick so that we can see it here? So, and wegen der Encryption aufpassen, sonst kommt ja nichts. Ne? Nee, ist schon drin, der Stick, dass er entschlüsselt wird. So Deutsche Telekom, just to give you an idea of the size, about 220,000 people across the globe, doing about 70 billion euro in revenue. So quite huge telco provider. You might heard about that. We are just acquired Sprint in the US, so it's a growing business in the telco environment. And the majority of our customers, from the IT perspective, are big enterprises. So typically customers come to us which are in a production-grade environment doing services on the cloud. I have some examples, maybe I have the opportunity to show that later, what our typical customers is and what our translation to our service is, because we are serving customers which are more in a regulated environment, so they have a lot of demands and requirements surrounding the specific service. So what we offer as a managed service is not that we have a better OpenShift. It's the OpenShift from Red Hat, and the Red Hat guys can tell you how OpenShift works. It's more the idea to make it consumable to our customers in an environment where there are a lot of additional questions to the services. So think about questions like, do we have a security approval to run a production-grade environment or application on that platform? Can you use it on a public cloud? Are you allowed to do so? Do you make sure that there are no customer data gets published to the wrong person? How to assure that in a long period of time? What happens if I spin up new deployments week by week and still having these security rules? I have processes. I need to build that to my different departments who are using the environment. And then it gets complicated. And it's not about the OpenShift technology, which is our core engine for our managed PaaS service. It's more about the processes, how we deal with that. And when I look around to our typical customer base, so that's German telco. Obviously, telco or automotive industry is a big thing for us. All these big German automotive producers are today on our platform. And they run services like Mercedes-Me from Daimler. So if somebody of you own a Daimler, you can see where Daimler is. You can open windows, close doors, check the status of the machine, etc. So that's a service from Daimler to the consumer, which is highly visible for them. And there are a lot of consumers, especially in the APAC area, where the people are really heavily using this service. And when this service is down for an hour, they call their dealer, say, what's happening with my fancy cloud gadget on my Daimler? It's not working anymore. So it's about reputation, communicate to customers. So it's really production grade. And if that service is down, you can be sure they call us immediately. So they need somebody who takes care about that service, which runs today, in that case, globally. And it's a really production-grade environment. Other customer we have is a huge logistic company in Europe. And they run their main entrance platform, where you can enter your address when you like to send a parcel. And the main time, or the most important time they have is on a Sunday evening. So before people start to watch a movie or go to bed, they make the last shopping carts, they finish all the things, they need to prepare the cars, which start on Monday morning delivery. So the biggest impact on parcel service is on Sunday evening. So when this service is down for 1 hour on Sunday evening, you can imagine what the impact is. It's a loss in revenue. The next parcel service is just 1 click away, so customer will not come back. So it's critical business. And when we talk to customers in these kinds of areas, it's more important for them to understand or to be trusted as somebody who is able to make sure that the service is available, no matter what it costs in that specific point in time. So they don't ask me if I have a better OpenShift or Tomcat configuration. They believe that we, together with Red Hat and other partners, are able to do so. But to make sure that the service level agreement will be met, and what happens if some failure occurs? There's a second data center, another connection. There are people get up late at night across the clock. That's a pretty important thing. And when we talk to customers in these areas, they have a lot of requirements from the formal or process world, which we need to meet before they are able to bring a service live. On the other hand, we have quite some experience in doing so. The service will shorten the time a line of business owner needs to run such an application in a production mode. Why? Because there are some, let's say, ready-built modules, how we deal with security, how we deal with some kind of processes, how we interact with DevOps in the ITIL world. So they don't need to invent it. They can consume it. It's a pay-as-you-go service. And that's what I would like to show in the presentation. Haben wir eine Chance? Ja, du musst es irgendwie entschlüsseln auf dem Ding da, ne? Okay. Okay. No, it's too late for the laptop. He's sleeping. Okay. Just for me. Yeah, damn. It's also 2 a.m. for my laptop, I think. Yeah. So, sorry for that, but we keep going with the blue screen, okay? So the typical challenge we see and why we provided services that IT divisions in many situations in enterprises are just pretty slow. I don't know what your experience is, but we often hear things like, we need 6 months, 3 months, or sometimes more to provide some kind of service. And when you're in a fast-moving business, or you like to start a fast-moving business, that's crap. That's not something you like to do in that world. But for the Daimler example I just mentioned, they have such sometimes very slow processes. But they're creating new departments because they like to jump on the new services. They like to go into cloud environments. But the big company still has the rules, the process, etc. So how can we be agile, fast, and flexible in such an environment where they have all these compliance rules and constraints? There's another topic which pops up in Europe, and I assume you heard it as well. That's GDPR. GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It's a new law, European law, how to deal with security. And I can tell you that's also a pain for us as a German company within Germany or within Europe, because we have to make sure a lot of paperwork and contracts with our subs and with our employees. But when you go to the cloud, then it's global. And when companies or service providers from other regions like to serve consumers in Europe, you have to be aware of the regulations and how to deal with that. It's about who can work with what kind of data. That's the right to forget, how to delete data. So there are some certain rights which we need to take care on. And so just by the fact that we are part of Europe, so we have to deal with that anyway, that's something we provide here for other countries to understand how we deal with GDPR, because it's not so much a technical thing, it's more process-oriented thing. And how we can make sure that all these security requirements really met. The funny thing is, GDPR will be active in about 10 days. So 25th of May, it will be started. And the funny thing now is, all these cloud providers you all know from the United States or from all over the world, they are changing their terms now for European customers. So when I use any kind of cloud service today, I have to re-accept any kind of cloud terms because they need to go after these new regulations. So the managed service itself, so what we offer as our OpenShift environment, that's something we run today on, let's say, any kind of infrastructure. So we run it on our our telecom cloud environment, which is a private cloud or public cloud. We run it on-premise or on public cloud providers. So we heard today on the keynote the multi-cloud strategy from Red Hat. And that's exactly what we are doing as a managed service, which is quite interesting because customers are asking to keep sensible data private in their private room, in their data center, or maybe their separated environment, but to leverage technology or scalability in the public cloud environments. And when we combine private and public cloud environments in one common use case, then sometimes it's getting complex to offer a streamlined service or streamlined operation model, which applies to both sides and assuring the same way how processes are met. And that's again the core of our process, or the way we are working as Deutsche Telekom and T-Systems, so that we offer that no matter where we run these kinds of environment. So regulated environments, so that's, let's say, some kind of our comfort zone where we are really good in. Most companies don't come to us and saying, I like just want an OpenShift. The goal for many line of business users we are talking to is they like to have a managed service for their application. And that's something where we evolved ourselves in the last 4 years. So that's the time we are offering today OpenShift services, is that we created a wrapper to provide managed services for any kind of technology. And that's quite interesting because when you think about what potential functions are out in the cloud world, it's too much to create a product or define service for each individual, because there's not only Tomcat and Nginx, there are hundreds of web services and hundreds of versions, and the same for databases and application as well. So it becomes pretty complex to have a standardized stack providing these managed services. So we separated the service itself from the technology. So think about a wrapper. This wrapper contains our operational task. We have some ITIL tools we are using. We have some DevOps methods we are using. I like to describe later on what the bridge between both is. And we have all this reporting, billing, security capabilities, which are attached to this managed service. And then we can add from a catalog of functions, things like a Tomcat or a NoSQL database or whatever it is, into that wrapper. The way we deliver the service itself is always the same. And that's the main idea. So when I know how the managed service, the security models and all these things are working, I can add features, the model don't change. And when I get a security approval or formal approval for billing and all these things, once on that wrapper, I can provide any kind of functionality. That, in mind, accelerates the way we can provide new features, new software to these enterprise companies. And that's the main goal. They come to us and asking us for innovation, for speed. They like to have these new things. But how to add these new technologies to this complex world, that's really tough to do so. When we're starting these services, then we have 2 questions from our customers. The one is the developers, what are asking them? Any kind of technology, I like to have the button where I can push and I get something. Immediately, now. Or you can call it DevOps, which is a pretty fast thing. And the expectation from developers often is they can get anything just by a push of the button, which feels like I'm the admin or root account on my environment and I'm free to play. The line of business comes to us, like I said in this logistics example or Daimler example. They come to us asking, what kind of service level do you provide to me? I expect 99.9 or whatever percentage of availability, and how to make sure that this happened. And you can't have the service level agreement in a DevOps way, because DevOps is some kind of shared responsibility in such a system. And in the shared responsibility, who is responsible when something goes down? Maybe everybody, maybe nobody, so it maybe doesn't count. So customers asking us that we are responsible, they know who to call to, and if necessary, there are groups of people starting to solve the problem. And that's nothing which applies to a DevOps role. That was a challenge, because when we started back about 4 years ago, we came to the project, they created an application, pretty successful, pretty fast, highly motivated people, and they came to the point to decide, now it needs to be operated somehow. And yeah, you can operate it by your developers, but typically they go at home at 7 or 8 p.m. or whatever it is, and then nobody is there. Yes, you can do it from home. Yes, they have a mobile phone, but that's not operation. Not operation when you do $1 million business on a platform. That's not enough. So you need to have some kind of professional operation running that business. That's typically the point where we come into the game. So they gave us the application. We provided the platform. And from our genetic, when we started 4 years ago, we are an ITIL-based company. So all our operation is based on ITIL services, ITIL processes. They are sometimes pretty slow, but they are assured by 100% that certain requirements are met, no matter what it costs. And that's what the line of business is buying from me. They're buying this 99.5 or .9 or whatever percentage from me. So they threw the new fancy agile application on my OpenShift-driven ITIL operation framework. And then they forgot some kind of network, a port, for instance. And they said, oh, please open port number 4000 for me. And we have to say, yeah, you have to fill out a change request. Many developers don't know what a change request is, what it means. We tell them, yeah, that's a formula, you have to fill in everything precisely. They do it. They give it to operations. Operations has 5 work days to approve the change request. And what happens then? There's some mistake in the formula. It gets back. So still no network port. Developers crying, so what the hell? When I do that on Amazon, I press my button and then I have my port available. So it takes me 5 minutes. So really frustrating situation for that agile development team. And we needed to change that. And we said, okay, for the development environment, we will open a channel from the developer to our operational guys. So we gave them the email address and the mobile phone. So the developers went quite happy. So they called the ops guys and they fixed the problems immediately. But they do not understood that the consequence was that the processes were deactivated. That means the monitoring was deactivated. The alerting was deactivated. And then it happened, then application get a crash, something went down, and nobody took care. Because there was no monitoring. Line of business was upset. Next escalation. Why the hell nobody was aware that my application is down? I pay money, I have an SLA. But the SLA was deactivated because you're talking to the ops guys directly. There's no ITIL process anymore. It's not working. So we tried to adjust the ITIL process a bit to meet or to optimize that. I can tell you that simply doesn't work. ITIL is something which we are doing in the IT business or IT industry for many years by now. And there are some good reasons why we are doing it in that way. It's sometimes bloody slow, but it meets these requirements or this availability. And so we said, it makes no sense to tweak and optimize the ITIL process because that's my fabric. It is like it is. In our fabric, there's also SAP and mainframe and all the other big things, not only our OpenShift environment. So leave it like it is. We need something in between, something like a bridge in between, which can translate between the DevOps world and the fabric world. And we introduced something which we call today our DevOps engineer, which is a role, a person who is in one part of the developer team for my customer, and the other part of my operations team. And that's something now with a certain set of access rights and tools they are using to provide an agile interface for the developers so they get changes in their development environment pretty quickly. but it needs to be pushed to the operations and production environment as well. And that's part of the developer, DevOps engineer. One thing we learned in the last years is these new developer teams from our customers, they start with, let's say, much younger people. They are not really aware of the ITIL environment. So they don't know how to play or process in that world. But these processes are required by the big companies. It's much better to separate these process world from the developers and leave them doing what they are really good at, creating software, building services, and having somebody in place who's taking care about these formal aspects so that we can provide the right service in time. And coming back to this network example, now it's working like that. We are seeing what in the sprint planning from the developer groups, what they are planning in the next sprints. So we're seeing, there's some feature with some network changes connected. So maybe a good idea to start or prepare a change because it will happen anyway. So it's more a question, how can we start processes early enough so that in point of the release, all these changes are in place. And that's a thing of communication and expectation handling. And the big difference is that the DevOps engineer knows what the customer is doing. In the ITIL fabric world, the ITIL world don't know what customers doing. We know in the fabric there are certain systems with capacity, then comes a ticket in from some customer with some applications, I don't care, it's just a ticket saying there's a problem. So fix the problem, next ticket. So the fabric guys don't know the landscape of the customer. The DevOps engineer is knowing that, and that makes a difference so that we can play the process world in a pretty fast way and providing the developers from the customer side in a real agile environment. By handing over requests to operations, we always make sure that all the security or process requirements are met, because that's only when this is given, then our internal operations is telling me, okay, I will now take over responsibility for that. Before this is happened, they will not do anything. So it's like a quality gate, and in any time we solve that quality gate, we can assure the customer that all these requirements are met. So there's like a documentation, we can assure that it's auditable, so we know that over a long lifetime of that service. And that's, from my perspective, a big difference than just do it once by installing that first time, but the application has a lifetime of 3 to 5 years, and it's much harder to keep that in the same quality over the long period of time. So I told you some examples from our OpenShift world. Within OpenShift, we do some more things. We're showing it on OutBoost as well. So we're also dealing with big data, and we try to adopt the same model, the same thinking to the big data world as well. So we like to bring both parties together, as well as for the analytic tools. So if you're interested in that part, to see big data or analytics on OpenShift, there's maybe something interesting we can show you. But that was the things I like to show you, or not to show you, to explain you, how we deal with regulated environments. And again, it's a complex thing to run OpenShift in an enterprise company. It's pretty easy to install it, and we see that plenty times across the globe in different countries. Most of our companies or customers, they are starting by doing on their own. But to have a full ecosystem with all these regulations, then it's getting complex. And if you like to, get more from that, come to our booth. We are on 316 in the expo area. I'm here as well for any questions.